Welcome back to another episode of This Is My Why. Today I have the honor of interviewing Sam McDadi, real estate entrepreneur, tennis lover, and a whole bunch of other great things. And I'm very excited to have you here. Thank you so much for making time for me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, no, we were just chatting actually before we started rolling, but I actually love to start from the very beginning.
Sure.
So I understand that the initial love was tennis. In previous interviews I've done, this comes up because as I was explaining, my daughter, that's what she wants to do. So I would love to hear, what your upbringing was like, where this love for tennis was kind of cultivated.
Yeah, I think the younger days are a little different than today. Today, people are on their videos, etc. Back then, we played all sorts of sports, be it basketball, field hockey, road hockey, baseball. So my brother and I picked up rackets, for me, kind of relatively late, maybe 13, 14. He was a couple years younger, but we really fell in love from day one. So from there, I think we played every day probably for forever, like 20, 15 years, but we took it really serious. And from there, and the difference here, unlike Florida and other warm states, is, you got to find a place where you can play indoors if you want to be competitive. So, we ended up playing at a place called Cobblestone, which is now, it was Mavis and Burnham Thorpe. So we spent our formative years there, but they had a great junior program there, some top level people. And honestly, I think I was probably there every day for 3-4 hours. And so really honed my craft as best I could. I mean, I started a touch late, but I was fortunate enough to be able to get a tennis scholarship after that. And that really helped shape me. I think competing in the States helped kind of my confidence, helped on so many levels how to win and compete. And I think that prepared me for the future. So
prior to 13 and picking up a racket, any other sports that
we played all the sports, but I don't think there's one that I really
connected.
Yeah, I just did all the sports. And I was a jack of all trades, but a master of none. So we played tennis, and I became fairly proficient at that after all the years. Time on task, right? So
it's an interesting age because you're in your teenage years, and tennis requires a lot of discipline. So you decided you're going to take this up. So you work your way with this type of commitment. Did you find it challenging at any point, or this is kind of
I think when you find a passion, it was a labor of love for sure. Just like now what I'm doing in real estate, I mean, we log a lot of long hours, but I love it, so it never feels like work, right? And I think that's really important. So for me and my brother, we just love to be on the tennis court. I mean, of course you felt the pressure when you're competing, playing tournaments, you want to do well and all the above, but it was a journey we all really enjoyed.
So it was you and your brother, you guys played each other?
I think younger years, I probably, as a couple years older, actually I wouldn't say, maybe I beat him a little bit, but after
Are you the eldest?
Yeah, but a year and a half, 2 years older. So, but after a few years, I mean, he did really well. And he was actually a Canadian champ, and he was number 2 in Canada, 200 in the world. So he took it to a pretty high level. I felt I'd be good enough to get a scholarship, but I didn't, I knew I wasn't going to be a pro, but it really worked well for me for the reasons we discussed.
Yeah, and we're going to touch on how you're still involved in that, in that love and that sport. So it doesn't, I guess, when you realized this isn't going to be what you're going to necessarily do, I guess you realized, okay, but I'm still going to be involved in some way.
Oh, yeah, one thing it did, which is great, and I think all sports do, is it keeps you off the streets, right? So in your teenage years, I mean, you can be up to no good. So I think when you have a passion of sports, you're really dedicated to that craft, and it keeps you on the straight and narrow, which I think was great for all of us.
Were your parents supportive?
Very. I mean, my dad just worked really hard. My mom was like a great mom who took us everywhere, right? So all the tournaments, she was always there, front and center. And my dad was just, a hardworking guy and wasn't there as much for our tennis, matches, etc. But we knew what his role was, right? So it was to make sure he kept the house together financially.
I think there's a lot of parents that could watch and relate. I think it still happens to this day where, parents kind of have to divide and conquer, or like sometimes that's it. You figure out what role it is and then you kind of execute, right? And ultimately it's about keeping the kids off the street, and if they fall in love and do great things with it, then they do.
Yeah, and I think you have to be careful as parents, because sometimes what we did see is parents put a lot of pressure on the kids, right? And you want to enjoy the journey, and most people aren't going to be number one in the world. And so I think you have to realize, hey, listen, if they really enjoy this and they can maybe get a scholarship, or at least it helps them mentally prepare for the future, I think that's great.
Yeah. So whereabouts did you go to school?
So I spent 4 years in near New Orleans.
Nice.
And it was great because a lot of the people they were playing tennis were from Australia and Spain and England and da-da-da. So we forged some lifelong friendships and relationships which we still keep today, which is great.
Amazing.
And then afterwards, I went to University of South Carolina, where I did my master's there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Your master's in?
I did an MBA.
Nice. Yeah. Very nice. Okay, so we're going to talk about the transition. So you finished school. Did you know right from then that you were going to switch careers at this point?
No, I didn't really know what I was going to do. To be honest with you.
Yeah.
I was like, I when I finished my undergrad, I thought, I still have momentum. I'm enjoying studying, so I'm not sure how easy it'll be for me to go back to school. So let me just continue on and do my master's. So at least I've completed my education component, and then see where life takes us from there. So,
Wow.
and when we finished your MBA back then. I thought, well, the natural path would be go corporate and all the fun stuff. And I did that, but honestly, I was really unhappy and I didn't feel like that was my calling. And I thought, well, I could do this for 40 years, but I'm really going to live a life that's kind of unfulfilled, right? So
Wow.
I want to find something I'm passionate about. And I was lucky enough, I was living at home, so I didn't have crazy expenses, so I can kind of shift. And, I think when I got into real estate, it probably looked like a step back because, if you did an MBA, you should be following the corporate path. But I thought, I just don't want to do something I'm unhappy doing, right? And I really loved real estate from the onset, but I thought, I got to make some money at this. And so I hope I can see, and I didn't know where that was going to take me, but I just enjoyed it. And if I could make a living, I'd be happy. And then, things started progressing from there.
Did you leave your corporate job and then do real estate, or did you do kind of both simultaneously?
I obtained my license, and I probably kept my corporate job for about 6 months, and then after that, transitioned out.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You just thought, okay, let me just do this.
Well, no, they actually let me go, which was
oh no. Okay.
So, which was at the time it was difficult to stomach, but I mean it's the right thing because my heart wasn't there.
The blessing.
Yeah, and I remember first thinking, okay, I'm going to prove now that I've got something to prove, and years later. I had bought a Cadillac, which wasn't even that expensive. I felt really proud, and I had to go to my old workplace and show them I got this car and da. And so, but it ended up being a really good blessing. But I think it was hard to talk about initially, but now I can talk about failures before success, right? So,
well, you are doing amazing, and we're going to touch more on that. So, just to kind of, because I feel like, the purpose of this episode, this podcast, This Is My Why, is just to get people to really do a lot of reflecting. And I like the fact that you said you knew when you were working your corporate job, like it just wasn't making you happy, even with, all the education you had put into it. And a lot of people come to this crossroad. Did it feel scary?
I wouldn't say scary. I just knew it was a different chapter, and I didn't know how it was going to unfold. But I knew that I didn't want to do something I was unhappy doing. I used to get the Sunday night blues in the corporate setting, and I didn't want to go back to work Monday, and I was kind of unhappy, depressed. And I finally, when I got into real estate, I felt like I wasn't really working anymore. So I'm like, wow, this is great. Every day feels great. And I could work every day, and I actually enjoy it. And so then I thought, okay, this is where I am supposed to be, right? And I think that was a great revelation.
Yeah, it was a natural fit, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me about how you built your real estate empire. So you became a real estate agent. What was it like? You're kind of thrown into this from a corporate background.
Yeah, so the first office I worked at was Home Life, and I got in there. So I was really excited, and I'm thinking, okay, here we go. And they said, okay, here's a phone book. You go through the alphabet, you start calling these people. I'm like, okay, so I'm not sure. And so I'd call, and they'd say, here's your script. And I'd call 100 people, and they'd all kind of, be, hang up. Hey. I said, I don't know if I want to do this. I'm not sure. So then I realized, well, I think the goal for me now is I don't like picking up the phone and calling. I want them to call me, right? So then I can use my skill set. So let me figure a way to kind of, if I could use the word brand myself, right? But of course, back then I didn't have the financial, capability. So it's slow and steady, right? So I said, but I just know one thing. If I had to do that, I would still be unhappy. If I had to pick up the phone every day and call 500 cold calls, for me, that wasn't for me. I wasn't going to be happy doing that. So, so then I started advertising and creating some bit of awareness. But I mean, and just to backtrack, and you talk with, my journey was, my parents were really successful. My dad was, and at age 15, we lost everything, right? So went so it was like from a place where, okay, I'm pretty complacent. And I can understand why I tell you a lot of the young kids feel a sense of complacency because they think, hey, our family's really financially stable, well-to-do. Right. There's almost a tendency to feel that, right? So at age 15, we lost everything, and it turns out that's the best thing ever because at the end, for sure, because at the moment it didn't feel great. It was like, your dad lost the house,
Oh,
but
wow.
I realized, okay, what I want to do now is work really hard to take care of my family, right? So it went from a place of kind of comfort to, to, okay, I got to dig deep and get an education. And so everything I did and all the hours I put really was to really create an opportunity for my family. And I think that was really an important why for me, right? So,
Right.
but yeah, so of course, real estate, the initial little months and years were difficult, but at some point I turned the corner, right? I started doing a few deals and things were starting to look positive. But interestingly, I remember one day I was working really hard, coming home every day, 11 or 12, and I did 2 deals in one day. And I was so happy. And, you shouldn't really do this, but I did. I started counting. I made X dollars. I can pay off my credit card bills or credit.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the one deal, I give it to our mortgage broker, and he goes, Sam, this guy went bankrupt a month ago, so he's not going to be able to buy. I said, okay, I got one of the 2 deals. I'll hold on to that, and that'll help me with some, cash flow and debt reduction. And then that person who I showed 100 houses to said, listen, you did a great job, but I think I'm going to move to the States, so I'm not going to buy this house.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, oh, and I remember tossing and turning for a few days. It was I said, sometimes you go through adversity and you've got to be strong to overcome that.
Right.
And I could have easily said at some point throughout that journey over the first couple of years that this isn't going to be for me. But I always tell people, listen, when it gets really tough, don't quit, because there's still going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, but you have to work hard enough and be persistent enough and believe enough to get there. Right. So, yeah.
Wow. So you had the insight during this time to still kind of be like, okay, I'm going through this. Let me just keep plowing at this. I'm going to get another client.
Well, I'm going to keep going because I like this. I just hope, and it's kind of, you can trace it back to sports. I mean, you learn how to compete, you learn how to win, you don't want to lose. And so, you're a little bit down, you're a little defeated, but you're not out, right? So and I think, we draw that same analogy, right? And I think for us, eventually,
that's it.
We turned the corner. Right?
I love that you said that, because I'm a big believer in that as well. I think that, sport, and I read this recently, with one of the soccer coaches, I think in one of the European clubs, he was explaining how much sport actually sets you up for life and the importance of that discipline. So you utilized that to kind of push through.
I believe that. So if I'm interviewing now for different agents, different opportunities, if they've had an athletic background, that's one check mark in their favor for sure. Because I know all the skill sets, the hard work, the ability to win, and all that stuff, right? And I think that's really important for us.
I just want to go back for a second, if you will. You said at 15, you guys lost everything. So that you said the house as well. Take me through that time.
Well, I mean, luckily we were already into playing tennis. So, and we had this nice house we lived in Lorne Park, and I went there from grade school to grade 9. And in grade 9, the chapter was closed, so we had to move. And I think from there on in until we were renting places and bounced around a little bit. But, honestly, the family unit was very strong. And we told our dad that hey, it's okay. Like, I mean, we're all together. We're still, healthy. And so, this is a bit of a turn the wrong way. But, we're unified, right?
That's amazing.
For me, I was fine. I mean, I think my dad took it hard, though, because my dad felt like he let us down, right? So, I mean, he passed away 22 years ago. But, for us, honestly, it was just more, turn this as best you can. It wasn't easy because you went from a place of comfort to not so comfortable, right? But you just knew, okay, this is what it is, and you can't change the course, and you have to make the best of it. So
it sounds like that adversity also helped with the sports background. Because you were used to bouncing back. Yeah,
for sure. And I think because, our life didn't change except we had a different house and all the above, and it wasn't the same kind of, amenities. But, we're still playing tennis every day. We're going to the club. We're dialed in on that. So that was our focus. That was our life. So whether we still had bed to sleep, we still had food to eat. So it wasn't as luxurious, but it didn't really matter, right?
Amazing.
So, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you're at home life. You're figuring it out.
Yeah.
Where does it click?
At one point, it's interesting because a lot of realtors back in the day, you try and ask them for, hey, the ones that are doing well, what are you doing? How'd you do it? And they were kind of a little closed off. They wouldn't really share their secrets, right? And so that's why in my world, I've been fortunate enough to have some level of success. Anybody wants to talk to me, I'm going to tell them everything. And the question then is, are you willing to work and apply yourself to get to that place? Because it's not just the information, it's the application, right? So, but I never wanted to, because I remember thinking, nobody's really willing to share anything. And so then I started looking at different realtors and seeing what they did. They weren't sharing, but I was modeling what they were doing, right? And then I said, okay, I'm going to make it better than that, right? So, and then eventually I started off as a buyer agent specialist. I didn't even know what listings were, didn't take listings. And so, but I became so good at that. And, we worked so hard that referrals came and and then eventually it became at a point where I couldn't really handle it all myself. So I thought I got to bring somebody else on,
Yeah.
right? Because I don't want to diminish the quality of service I've been given to all my clients.
Correct.
So one of my friends who was a childhood friend, who at that time we were actually rooming together, he was doing a PhD. I said, you should get your real estate license. I need some help, right? So he did. And so he joined me. And then the lawyer I was giving deals to left his law practice. He joined me.
Wow.
My banker left her journey. She joined me. So we had all these, we were trying to figure out how do you run a team? What are the right splits? Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And I thought we would all be partners. But it became apparent I was probably the worker. So I was, from a hierarchy, I was going to probably take the lead, right? So that was the starting point of the team, concept for us. So,
amazing.
And a lot of times people today try and build a team just because they want to build a team. But you really should build it organically out of necessity versus, hey, I just want a team, right? So, because then it doesn't, in my opinion, work, right? So for me, I just knew the workload, the flow was too much. And so we needed other people that can help us in that journey versus, let me just build a team because it looks like others are doing it and I should do the same. I think that's maybe a mistake. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So you formed this team. And then when did this brokerage come to be?
Well, interestingly, so, the journey was from home life for a couple of years. Then I went to Sutton Group for about 8-9 years, and then went to Remax for 14 years. And so I was with Remax 14 years, and we decided it's time maybe to do our own. And it's interesting because, we talked to the team. At that time, the team was maybe 20 large with agents. And so we had a team meeting. I said, guys, what do you think of McDadi Real Estate? And they all said, yeah, I think we can do it, right? But I had some trepidation. I said, are you sure? Because we might need the brand, da-da-da. And then I talked to a really good mentor friend, and he said, Sam, I think you're ready for this, right? So we did it, and we gave our broker 4 months notice. And I remember May 1st, 12 years ago, we opened shop, and from 9 to 12, not one phone call. So I'm like, did we misfire that bad? And I was like really getting nervous. And then we get a call around midday, and it was a phone company saying, "Listen, we're sorry, your lines were down. Now you're up and running." Right?
Oh, wow.
So I said, "Thank God!" Right?
That's
So
nerve-wracking.
yeah, because I was like, actually, it was like, "Oh, this is like really bad." No calls in 3 hours, and usually we're getting calls.
For sure.
And so from there, it was honestly really wonderful. And
amazing.
so today we have 7 offices that.
Wow.
So we've got 2 in Mississauga, 1 Oakville, Milton, Burlington, Hamilton, and Yonge and Lawrence.
Amazing.
Right? So it's and we thought at one point of it having a Remax franchise, but it was a little restrictive in terms of territories, all of the above. So I said, you know what? I think we're just going to do our own thing, and it's worked out well. So
wow, amazing. 7 offices. How do you manage 7 offices?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've got a great team. The supporting cast is great now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I still like to be in the trenches and sell real estate. So it's not like I'm, teaching from afar.
I see that actually.
So I'm in the game and I deal with all my past clients. And then, with our team, I can really mentor and train them, not from, a theoretical perspective, but from real life, right? And I think it's really important.
Where is the most satisfaction for you when you do a transaction? Is it the connection with the client? Is it the fact that you're helping them with the biggest purchase of their lives, or selling, whichever way you want to look at it? Like, where do you really find the most fulfillment?
Yeah, I've always been a person that's not a high pressure salesperson, right? So I don't make people feel uncomfortable. I want them to make a good, sound decision. And if I feel it's not the right time, I'll tell them, guys, I don't think you should transact today. I've got a client today who asked me to look at the value of his house, and I'm going to call him later today and say, honestly, based on what you paid for it a few years ago and where the market is, I don't think you should sell, right? Because there's probably at best you might break even, right? So, and I think people always appreciate the honesty, because sometimes people will say, oh yeah, you should sell, you should do this, and they're just thinking, well, if it doesn't sell, but I'll tell them, guys, if you're on the market today and the chances of success are small, then the optics aren't good. The days on the market start mounting and it hurts you down the road. So I think today, based on the limited chance of success, if that's the case, then maybe we should defer it, right? Yeah. I think people will respect that, right?
100%. So, I think in an industry like the real estate industry, you get like I'm talking in general, they get battered and bruised with, this agent said this. And so it's refreshing to see that, honesty and integrity is at the forefront of your brand.
Yeah, I think it has to be. Right? Listen, I think if you're not going to be around, X number of years.
Exactly.
Right? So,
and 30, you've been 30
plus
years.
Right?
Yeah. Wow.
So, and I think that, if you have one good year, I tell people that doesn't define your career. You're a shooting star. But if you've had a 20 or 30-year successful career, that means you're doing the right thing year in, year out, right?
Correct.
Because
it's the consistency.
Yeah,
right?
if you're unethical, you won't be into the business too long, because your reputation will precede you, right?
Exactly.
So,
No, for sure. Where do the morals and values, just from the interview itself, I could see there's a very strong moral compass and very strong value system in place. Is that from your parents?
I think my family for sure. Yeah. I mean, they were always, preached honesty and integrity and stuff. So I think all of my family members are the same. Like the lying's not an option. Like it's just you want to be operating with integrity. And I think I wouldn't go to bed feeling right if I didn't do that, right?
For sure.
And we're humans, we'll make mistakes, but we'll own those mistakes. So if I make a mistake, I'll make it right. So if something goes wrong where there's a mistake on ABC, which can happen, right? Then we're going to say, listen, that's on us, and we'll take care of this. We'll make it right. So
I find that type of accountability, the things you're discussing, I think these are things that we need to reinforce in this day and age. With all the things going on.
Yeah, for sure. And, right now there's 80,000 realtors, right? So this is probably the biggest board in North America and maybe arguably the world, right? So, and I think it's probably too many, to be honest. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
I would agree.
A lot of realtors, right? So, and of which maybe three quarters don't sell any houses, right? And I think it's a bit of an issue because let's say somebody's brother's a realtor and that person doesn't even really practice real estate. Well, he's almost compelled to go to with his brother. Otherwise, Sunday dinners will be bad.
Exactly.
But he's probably not going to get the best advice, not because it's malicious, just because they're not in the know, right? So that becomes a bit of a double-edged sword. It's interesting. In New Zealand, if you're going to get your real estate license, you have to apprentice for 2 years after you have your license. And then, so the process is much more streamlined and stringent. So it's not, because I think sometimes boards just want the revenue, right? And I think that's a mistake because inherently you create a bit of a mess sometimes, right? So
no, I absolutely agree with you. So like, when you get new agents, what are some of the things you say to them, especially, knowing how saturated this market is? Like, it could get a bit daunting, right? Especially when you're brand new.
Yeah. Well, I think the advantage of, and it's not like we're saying, anybody who wants to apply, becomes part of the team, because we have a lot of applications on a daily basis now. And we typically will say running at full capacity because it's important for you to make sure our teammates still stay busy and they still feel like it's a good team environment. And, if we grew it to 500 agents, then to feel like it wouldn't be the family feeling we have today.
Yeah.
So that's important for us. But I think with us, we train them, we mentor them. We also make sure they have a realistic expectation of the business, because it's not like you get your real estate license and it's licensed to print money. It's anything but that. You have to work hard. You have to do the right things. You have to plant the seeds and reap the benefits over the years, not a month or two, over the years. So people want it yesterday. And that's life. It typically doesn't work that way. Any business, it doesn't work that way.
No, I think that perspective is so important. And I'm happy to hear that that's the expectation that's being set. Because again, it goes back to that story you said when you had the 2 deals and then they both kind of fell through. It happens. So I feel like when you don't set that type of expectation, you're kind of counting your eggs before they hatch, and then all of a sudden you're in trouble, and then there's just unrealistic expectations, and that's when things start going wrong, right? So
For sure.
No, it's nice to see that. It makes perfect sense how you grew it into 7 offices. I think and more to come, hopefully.
For sure. There's a lot of things in the pipeline, and we're enjoying the journey. And I still want to make sure that we can do a lot of different things, but I still want to make sure that we have a good balance of everything, and I think that's important. So.
How do you find balance?
It's elusive sometimes, right? But I think it's important in the morning to have Sam time. So I do like to work out, and that's important for me. And I'm
gonna actually pause you and ask you to go a little deeper, because I know how much fitness means to you.
Yeah.
So it's not a light comment, right?
Sure.
Because I think you said if you weren't doing something in real estate, you would be doing something in the fitness industry.
I think so.
Right?
Because that's another passion for sure. So so in my house, I call it McDadi Wellness Lab, which is just a fun terminology. But I've got a red light bed, and I've got a hyperbaric chamber, and I've got a cold plunge. And I've got a class 4 laser for injuries. So it's a
wow.
So daily I get a massage, and actually tonight, after we do our podcast, I've got a massage lined up. So I think it's really important to also take care of yourself, right? So I think that's a big deal. And even from an eating perspective, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't put any sugar in my body. I don't, in fact, have any refined carbs, and I won't deviate from that. So I'm really strict, and I think very disciplined. So once I make up my mind on something, that's it, right? But interestingly, when I do blood work every 4 months, because your blood turns over every 4 months. My last blood work was done last week. So my cholesterol markers were better than they were 30 years ago, right? So,
Wow.
I mean, really, to me, if you do all the right things, I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much on longevity now that, from intermittent fast, I'm only eating 6 to 8 hour feeding windows every day and stuff.
Wow.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think because at the end of the day, if you're not feeling well, you can have all the money in the world. It doesn't mean anything, right?
Exactly.
So health is way above anything else. So that's number
Exactly.
one. And then, I guess, in terms of,
Wow.
finances or health, I take, health all day long. The two
Yeah.
together are nice, but, health is so paramount. So
That that's interesting. So if you have a dish, like a childhood favorite dish, you're not tempted to kind of deviate?
no,
Wow.
no problem. Yeah.
Wow.
But 'cause that also I'm fortunate. I have a chef. And so, all the dishes he makes, which are super clean, etc. I love the taste too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just not, I don't feel like I'm getting deprived. Like I'm like,
Wow.
wow, this is amazing. Right.
Yeah,
So,
it sounds like you invest in yourself. You invest in
Oh,
your
yeah.
betterment and health and obviously your
Yeah.
food, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. When did that kick in? Or that was always there?
Interesting. No. So when I was playing, it goes back to tennis days. I was 18, 19. I was playing a tennis tournament, and I started cramping really badly, and I pretty much couldn't finish the match, like to the point where it was really bad, right?
Oh, no.
So one of a person who was also a mentor back in the day, and he was the next professional hockey player. He had won a Stanley Cup ring. He said, "Sam, your diet's terrible." I said, "What do you mean?" Like, he goes, "Sam, you're having sodas and chocolate bars, and that's terrible for you." And I didn't really know. I said, so he gave me a book called The Sugar Blues, and I read it, and I realized, oh my God, he's right. This is really, so by 19, before I even went to university, I started becoming like a really proponent of nutrition and studying it and all the above. So pretty young, right? So it wasn't like, it wasn't like when I was 5 or 10, but, in my teen years, late teens, I started understanding the importance of nutrition. And I think that was, and of course, the theories have changed a lot over the years, right? So from what I was doing 30, 40 years ago versus now, it's I'm sure in 30, 40 years, they'll say different things, but it's based on the information you have and how you feel, really, right? So I think that's the key thing.
No, I'm a huge nutrition buff myself. I'm a big believer in that as well. And I'm interested to know what your thoughts are and where, the food industry and, just like the things people are consuming right now with the processed food, the sugar and the dyes and
yeah, no, it's pretty bad.
all of the above. Yeah.
I think, listen, if people really understood what they're doing to their bodies and how they're kind of probably shortening their lives, and it's not only like you want to live to be, let's say, a centurion, which I do want to be that, but also a healthy, vibrant centurion, because it can be 100 because you're on drugs and you don't have
it's quality of
then
life.
I think
right?
at that point I'd like to check out, right?
Yeah,
because there's no point at that point, right?
Exactly.
So, but if you're still able to do things, relatively well at an advanced age, then there's purpose for life, right? So
no, for sure. And I think a lot of times people think it's associated and it costs a lot of money. And I don't think that's the case. I think it's just lack of education.
Well, listen, if you're only eating 2 meals a day, it costs you less, right?
Exactly. And if you do it right,
yeah, for sure,
you're good. And
yeah.
if you're cooking at home, even better,
exactly.
right? So
I don't even like to eat out too much, to be honest, because I don't know what kind of oils they're using to cook and all that. So, even if I do go out, I said, please cook it in this oil. Whether they do or not, I don't know.
I love to see that you are still performing at the highest level.
Yeah, of course.
And it's like definitely, translated from your tennis days to where we're at now, but it's just different, but it's still you performing at your highest level without compromising any of what you need to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I really hope people take that and, do some research for themselves. These are conversations I have with my kids all the time because it scares me what's out there and just I'm not going to name any of the, the energy drinks out there, but I'm always going, is there dyes in there? Like, do you read? Like, what? Can you please take a look at what you're drinking? It's not just about, electrolytes. Like,
no, exactly.
Be mindful and,
because a lot of times these electrolyte drinks are so loaded with, sugars and all that stuff. It's like, it's not even that.
Yeah. And it's like,
without
please,
mentioning names, they're not.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So we're going to talk about how you bring back your love for tennis now. So you have this amazing brand you've built and you sponsor the National Bank Open, which is amazing. I see that you're very in tune with actually a lot of, athletics and like athletes. And so you could tell that love still runs deep. So is this your way of kind of still keeping and giving back to that community?
Yeah, I think when I was first approached, my brother's being involved with Tennis Canada for 25 years. I first wanted really nice seats at the NBO, which used to be Rogers, right? So and so from there, a good friend of mine, Carl Hale, who's a tournament director, we did a lot of really cool things together. And I said, you know what, let's kind of really up our involvement with the tennis initiatives and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I've loved, like, and I love tennis. I love being I'm pretty much there as a permanent fixture, especially night events, day events. If it's
Yes.
really hot, maybe not. I'll get my tickets away. But I mean, this year the guys were there. And it's funny because I just met with the guys from Tennis Canada about next year's, because the male female rotate and stuff. So yeah, it's been great. And in fact, I'm involved now with a tennis club that myself and Carl are putting together in Mississauga. So it'll be an indoor facility, which is right now there's a real shortage in tennis. It's kind of on the rise. There's not
100%.
you can't really get hours and stuff. So this will be fun. It's going to open up pickleball and tennis next fall, I guess, is our start date.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it's one of our fun little projects to kind of
Amazing.
stay
I
in the
totally
game.
agree. Yeah, I think there's definitely a need for it. And it's great for kids.
Yeah, it really is. So I'll keep them off the streets, right? So which is
You know what? There's so much talent here.
Well, it's good now. It's finally starting to, you're starting to see that. Some, Bianca and Layla and Dennis and Felix. So you've got some really good Canadian athletes. And last year they won the Davis Cup, which is unbelievable, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah,
exactly.
which is great. So
amazing.
Yeah.
What's the next thing for Sam? Like, what are you eyeing?
Listen, I'm just want to keep enjoying the journey, and I want to keep mentoring our team, and as long as I'm having fun, right? That's the key thing for me.
Yeah.
So I want to wake up every day and feel like, wow, this is just a great day, and let's just make it a better day, and hopefully empower and stuff. And I'm really happy, and I end up going to Florida once a month in the winter, and maybe. I've got a place where I'm playing tennis every day for a couple hours, and I've made some really good friends there as well. So that's my second life there. And so, so tennis is still a big part of that whole existence for me. So
where do you see the legacy going? Whether it's tennis, whether it's real estate, what are you kind of building to?
I haven't thought about what my legacy will be. I just think that hopefully, you leave it a better place, and and try and impact as many people as you can positively, and be a good role model for people, right? So and I don't know, we've had a person over here, George St. Pierre, who is a UFC fighter, and he's become a friend. And he was. I mean, if people know the fighting world, a lot of those people are different, but George is such a nice, authentic person, and I think that really resonated. Here's a guy who's ultra successful, very humble, is honest, and is pure about who he is, and vulnerable when need be. And so I think people should realize that you want to be your authentic self, and I think that's really important. And at the end of the day, you don't have to impress anybody as long as you're doing the right thing. Because too many people live to try and make people so they impress others, right? And I don't think you need to do that. I mean, and George St. Pierre said something that I'll never forget. He said, "Listen, at the end of the day, I don't care what people think of me. As long as I walk the straight and narrow, I'm not going to be governed by how people view me. I care very much about my family, my very good friends, how they view me. The rest, I'm going to do the right thing, and how they view me is how they view me, right?" And there's people that are so consumed by that, but truth be told, when you leave, we're just a speck here. It doesn't matter, right? So, and I don't think we should focus so much on that, but more focus on things you can do, and things beyond your control you just don't want to worry about. And there's times, honestly, I'll see posts where people say things about me. They're a little derogatory, and I feel bad. I'm like, but Sam, they don't even know you. So if they want to make those statements, it's okay. I mean, that's their journey, right? So my journey is just keep doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Right?
So you're about just, you don't even acknowledge it. You just kind of keep doing your thing.
I don't. I mean, listen, we're all human. I mean, so of course, if you see some things that are completely not even accurate, you're like, I'd like to say something, but it doesn't matter if they're the people, because you got these people who are just these trollers and say all these things that aren't even.
It's the day.
It doesn't
and age
matter,
right?
right? So if you just realize, let it go, right?
Exactly.
That's fine.
Sam, you have such a calm energy about you, like super zen. I have to say, it's very refreshing. I'm, with my previous life in real estate, I've come across so many people, and it's such a high energy, stress environment. I walked into your office and I did not pick that up at all, but everybody's smiling, everybody's working, and sitting in front of you right now, and just kind of, being in your presence and your energy. Is that something you are mindful of, or are you aware that, or is this just who you are?
I think from my early years, early 20s, university, I started building that, kind of thought process and mindset. And I worked a lot on self-growth and all that, right? And I think that's been really important. But I also learned the things you can't control, why worry about it, right? So do the best you can. And after that, try and as best you can let go. And there are humans. There's times you can catch me on bad moments for sure. I
can't even imagine that right now.
You definitely can for sure. But we try our best, right? To do the right things and stay calm as best you can. But listen, I mean, there's a lot of times you're being pulled many different ways, and like you said, we're all human beings, right? So, but I mean, my brothers are perfect examples. They're the calmest, most gentle souls, right? So, and that's, I mean, they're wonderful people, right? So,
for sure. That's amazing. This is my why. So, what is your why?
Well, listen, I think for me, I was really blessed when my dad passed away 22 years ago. I already bought my parents a house. And so my goals I want to achieve, I did, right? So, and honestly, to me, I've been blessed to have success, and we've bought a few material things along the way. That means nothing to me, right? I could lose all that and it wouldn't matter to me, right? So, of course you want, food, shelter, all of the above, right? But being able to impact people positively is important for me. So, yeah. And I think the key thing as well is do it, but don't shout that you're doing it. Just do it because you want to do it, and do it anonymously. I think a lot of people want to do things and they want people to know they're doing it. And I think that's some ways counterintuitive, right? So I like a lot of times will help a lot of different people, but I don't really ever want to talk about that because I think that's something I want to do. And it's not because I want to show that to other people. It's just because I feel it's the right thing to do. So
where does that come from? It was exampled. It was taught.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Listen, I think what I saw with my dad, if I could be truthful, is that when when he was riding high, he was pretty, I mean, he had a different. No, I think he was, he just felt like, he was put himself. You start feeling your stocks really high, right? And I thought, but you can get chopped down real quick. So even if I'm riding high, low, whatever, you have to be your authentic self and be nice, because honestly, in life, I've seen people really high and they can come down real quick. And it doesn't even have to be financial; it could be health, it could be this, that. So life is fleeting, and so you also have to count your blessings and never, feel you're better above, and just we're all human beings, and if you had the good fortune of doing well, then you should hopefully make good use of that. So
that's amazing. That's a great why. I see how impactful your parents were, but I find I resonate with that. So that I think that is very important for people to understand.
Yeah, listen, my mom's 86 this next month, and she walks every day, does Tai Chi every day.
Wow,
and so
is she here?
She is here, yeah.
Okay.
She's great, and so she's, and I'll say that she does still work for me because she does all my mail outs, so it keeps her busy, right? So she loves it. And if there's a missing postal code, Sam, there's a postal code missing here. Like I'm like she's so on point. So I'm like, that's awesome. So she's great.
That's amazing.
So I think that's my mom's and both my dad have been a big influence for sure.
I'm sure they're very proud. I'm more, more than they probably say. I know parents don't really express.
Oh, my mom tells me all the time.
Yeah, that's amazing.
My dad didn't say as much, but
of course, it's always one or the other.
Right? I think he was.
For sure. That's amazing. So we spoke about your why, and I like to ask, if you can tell your younger self something, whether it's your 19-year-old self or your 20-year-old self, if you had any piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, listen, I think when we're younger, we're influenced by our peers, and we make sometimes decisions that aren't the best decisions. When you get older, you realize, hey, listen, I know what I need to do and want to do, and if I'm not comfortable doing it, I won't do it, right? And I think everybody going through that, teenage years, you're very influenced, and sometimes negatively or positively, right? So, when you get older, you know who you are as a person. So, but I think that's just evolution. So, of course, I love to be myself right now, the 19-year-old, because I have a whole lot more wisdom. But I think I'm happy with the journey I was on and embarked upon.
Amazing.
So,
Amazing. So we're going to lighten it up a little bit before we wrap up.
Sure.
I like to ask a few light questions. What is your favorite food? Considering that it's disciplined, I'm interested to know what it is.
Yeah. So, listen, I'm a pescatarian now, so I don't have red meat. I don't have chicken. Okay. So I love fish. So fish is probably
grilled, fried. No, probably
never
not fried.
Never fried.
Okay, got you.
Yeah,
you got it. Baked.
Grilled. Yeah, sure, baked. Sure, yeah, but
a favorite country to visit.
That's a good question. I think the favorite places I've been to in terms of vacations, it might have been, I think Santorini I really liked. I love Maui. I love doing an African safari was incredible. I was in Botswana, Zambia, and all that. So that was a real eye-opener, just seeing nature in its purest form. So I love that as well.
Are you a nature lover?
I didn't think I was till I took that trip, and it opened my eyes. It was just incredible to watch that. It was just an incredible experience.
Yeah, I think also the environment too, right? It's just, it really transports. Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. Favorite hobbies?
Oh, yeah, for sure, it's sports. So via tennis or golf or anything sports.
Are you a
related.
golfer?
Yeah, I mean, a little golf. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a lot of time, so I don't play as much, but I think I'm reasonably coordinated. So, but I do enjoy that. So, yeah.
No, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
If you can be anywhere in the world right this moment, where would it be?
Wow, that's a good question. Anywhere in the world today. Where would I be today? Listen, I'm going to give an easy answer. I'll be in my place in Boca right now playing tennis.
Oh,
It's an easy answer.
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. No,
Yeah.
that's your
Yeah.
that's your zen, right?
Yeah,
That's your
it
zen.
really is. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to seeing all the amazing things you do. I can't wait for this center to open next year.
Next year, next fall.
Okay. Is there a possibility that you would do like a collaboration maybe with Tennis Canada, do some scholarships for Canadian athletes?
Yeah, for sure. I'd consider that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just because I'm always kind of inquiring on like what's out there, what's coming, and so.
Yeah. Listen, I think there's a lot of interesting things happening with Tennis Canada. There's, the head of Tennis Canada is retiring the end of this year. My brother's second in command is retiring. So, I mean, a lot of good changes. I mean,
Interesting.
sometimes change is good.
That's
as
a
well,
lot of
too.
change, though.
Yeah,
huh?
it is a lot of change. Yeah,
Wow.
but good change. Actually, even the tournament director in Montreal is retiring. So you're seeing some
Wow.
changes as well,
That's
too.
a lot of
So,
changes.
Yeah. And I think one of my other passions I love, which I really recently got integrated with this last 5 years, is I'm really falling in love with basketball, and I'm a courtsider now with NAV. So I sit beside NAV every
Amazing.
game. It's been like 5 years, so I've really enjoyed that. And we've
Nice.
had the good pleasure also.
That's right.
being
Yeah, you're a
affiliated with-
fixture at the
the last
Raptor
5 years
games,
I've loved that
right?
too. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So
Nice.
yeah, so
Very
that's a good
cool.
pastime for me as well too. It's
Yeah.
good escape for a few hours as well. So.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yes, the pleasure's ours. Thank you for having us.
No problem.